Dick Cheney accused of treason as a new movie Fair Game debuts in the coming days about the real-life spy scandal that occurred here in Washington. You're about to hear some very harsh charges. Speaking out, Valerie Plame, the former CIA officer who was outed during the Bush administration, and her husband, Joe Wilson, an ex-ambassador who disputed claims about Iraq's so-called weapons of mass destruction. Are you still bitter after all these years?
No, absolutely not. I think that we're in a great country and the justice system did the best that it could. I would have liked to have seen justice served further, but I think bitterness is really a wasted emotion. We're delighted with the movie. It's an important story to tell of that time and place in our history. And we've remade our lives personally and professionally out in New Mexico.
When you say you would have preferred justice served further, what does that mean?
What it means is I think it's very clear that there were other people involved in the betrayal of my covert identity. There was, as the prosecutor said, Patrick Fitzgerald, there clearly was a conspiracy to defame Joe Wilson, and there was a cloud over the office of the vice president. So there are a lot of things that were not able to come out.
Joe, Scooter Libby was convicted of obstruction of justice, which basically means that the prosecutor was unable to get to the bottom of the conspiracy because Scooter Libby obstructed his ability to do so.
The first person to release the identity of Valerie Plame was Richard Armitage, who was the Deputy Secretary of State.
Rich was one of three. The other two were Scooter Libby and Karl Rove.
And you firmly believe that?
Well, it's not that I firmly believe it. It's been said by Bob Novak, said by Matt Cooper. Judy Miller talked about being with Scooter Libby at the St. Regis Hotel, and her notes have Victoria Flame, which obviously was her interpretation of Valerie Plame. So I think it's all been documented, Wolf, and it all came out in Scooter's trial.
Let's talk about sources and methods, because at the time you were, and a lot of people at CIA and elsewhere were concerned that sources and methods, some of your contacts when you were an active agent for the CIA could have been compromised. All these years later, is there any evidence that sources and methods and some of your contacts were compromised?
Well, that's exactly why it was so insidious what happened, because it's not just me and my career, that's one thing, but the entire network of assets with whom I've worked with over the years was compromised, was put into jeopardy. In some cases, their lives are really...
But do you know for a fact that that has happened?
A damage report was done by the CIA. I never saw it. I know in some cases what happened to certain assets. I don't know in others.
Now, we have international friends who found that their relationship with us caused them problems with their government.
Even though it was completely...
Even though they were completely social friends.
Yeah.
Your friends or her friends?
Both.
Because all of a sudden they discovered that your wife was really a CIA officer.
That's right. That's accurate.
Let's talk about some of the people involved. You mentioned some of them. And I want both of you to give me your quick reaction when I mention their names, what you think about them. Dick Cheney.
I think he has an extremely dark view of the world. And his idea of the 1% doctrine, which was, you know, if there's a 1% chance of a terrorist attack or something affecting our national security, we're going to do everything to prevent it. And that sounds good, except what it really means is it undermines the very values that we as a country hold dear.
Traitor.
Scooter Libby.
I think he's someone who was doing everything he could to protect his boss, Vice President Cheney, and he was left out to dry.
Traitor.
Well, you say that Scooter Libby is a traitor and Dick Cheney is a traitor. That's a serious word.
Absolutely.
And you know as a diplomat what that means.
Absolutely.
Betrayed the United States.
National security of our country.
All right, go ahead and explain why you...
By betraying the identity of a covert CIA officer whose identity is kept secret because it's in the national interest that identity be kept secret in order for her to be able to acquire foreign secrets on behalf of our country.
Well, Scooter Libby may have, but is there evidence that Dick Cheney did?
There's a cloud over the vice president. That's a Pat Fitzgerald quote.
But it doesn't necessarily mean he himself told anyone publicly that Valerie Plame is really a CIA.
He is the one who basically gave the instructions, and that also has been documented by their July 14 flight back from Roanoke, Virginia, when he was in the front cabin with Scooter and Kathy Martin. And they got off the plane, and that's when Scooter made a phone call to Judy Miller at Andrews Air Force Base. That was about a 23-minute phone call.
George W. Bush.
I think just as he thinks history will judge him, I believe that as well. I think we might have different interpretations of what that will look like.
I agree with that. I would let history judge him.
You don't think he's a traitor?
I don't know. I don't know what he knew. We were unable to get that. We were unable to get that in criminal court. We were unable to get there in civil court because the Supreme Court denied us the right to go ahead and pursue civil charges against them or civil case against them.
The new movie is entitled Fair Game. Sean Penn plays Joe Wilson. Naomi Watts plays Valerie Plame. Here's a little clip from the film.
My name is everywhere, my real name.
Those in the highest office sought to destroy the career of a covert agent to punish me for telling the truth.
Your wife is a traitor.
How dare you talk about my wife? You don't know her.
We know where you live.
People threaten to kill my husband, hurt my children.
We've got to strike back. They'll bury us if we don't.
How close is this film to reality?
It's not a documentary, but it is a really good, accurate portrayal of what we went through, both personally and in the political maelstrom that we lived through. The director, Doug Liman, really wanted to make it as follow events. Of course, it has to be telescoped because this happened over a series of years, as you know, but and you want to tell a story. And I think it's very powerful.
What do you think?
Oh, I think it's an accurate representation of the time that we lived through.
Because it's a drama.
It is, sure. And so there's a lot, there are Hollywood
Did they make
devices.
up stuff in there?
Well, of course they did, sure.
Where things that I can't talk about, sources and methods, my operations, precise details, obviously the screenwriters needed to.
Well, they obviously dramatize things, sure. That's what they do when they make feature films.
But basically, it's close enough to reality that you're comfortable with it.
I'm comfortable with it.
And you're comfortable with it.
Absolutely.
How comfortable are you with Naomi Watts playing you?
I could do much worse, huh? She's a fabulous actress. And whoever thinks that you're going to have a movie made, the whole thing has been really surreal. But she and Sean both deliver great performances. They've worked together before, and I think that chemistry, which exists in real life, is there on screen as well.
How comfortable are you with Sean Penn playing you?
Well, it's hard for me to judge because I see myself from the inside. But both my wife and my son think that he does an accurate portrayal. My own view is I have better hair and that I eviscerate my dinner guests more adeptly than he does in one scene in the movie.
He couldn't, I guess he's not a good enough actor to capture that kind of evisceration. Is that what you're saying?
He's a very fine actor.
Same intensity.
The movie, once again, is called Fair Game. Sean Penn, Naomi Watts, they play our two guests, Joe Wilson and Valerie Plame. Guys, thanks very much for coming in.
Thanks, Wolf.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you.